California's liberal politicians are trying to strip local control out of housing decisions. Coming up, we'll tell you about a controversial amendment to the state constitution that will allow public welfare housing to be put in neighborhoods without any sort of recourse by local residents. We'll tell you how you can fight to maintain the caliber of your neighborhood and keep housing decisions local. I'm Carl DeMaio, chairman of Reform California, and I want to talk about California's dysfunctional approach to housing. Now, let's get something quite clear right up front. Housing prices in California are literally insane. There's no debate about it. The cost of housing in California is astronomically high. Now, look, you got to figure out why are our prices so high so we don't repeat the mistakes of the past. It makes no sense to double down on failed policies that gave you high housing prices in the first place, but that's exactly what California is set to do. Let me start first with a little economics on housing. Housing boils down to location, 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 plus the cost of building housing. And throughout all of this, whether or not people are willing to invest in the location, 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 given the costs, the risks, and potential rewards. Now, that's a lot of economics to sort through, but let me try to simplify it for you and how California has really screwed up this equation. You take a look at location, location, location. Now, some would say, you can't beat California and its weather, its natural beauty, and I would agree with you. Our weather, our natural beauty, absolutely unparalleled. However, location, location, location can raise the question of whether or not we have the capacity to build anymore in certain areas, whether or not we have the infrastructure to actually accommodate new housing development. So while location, location, location is a common thought process when it comes to the price of housing and what the value of housing is, it's also true that if you try to cram a bunch of housing in the same location without adequate infrastructure, and by that I mean schools, roads being a major issue, electricity, water, if you don't have infrastructure to support that housing, you're going to have opposition from the local residents to any more housing supply in that area. It's very simple. It's common sense. In California, politicians are collecting money on housing projects, but they're not putting the roads in. They're not putting the schools in. They're not putting fire stations in. They're not building the infrastructure. And at the same time, they're choking off the supply of water and energy. And so rightfully, residents locally, when they see a big, dense housing project proposed, are going to be very concerned. They're going to ask, how are we going to fit more people on the roads? How are we going to get the water or electricity for them? Now, mind you, the liberal politicians in California stole the road repair funds and the road expansion funds. So the roads should already have been expanded because of previous development projects. And know that with water and energy, California liberal politicians have choked the supply of those two important commodities. And so, look, I understand why people oppose more housing projects in their backyard. But a lot of times it's because politicians have failed to do their job. It's not the market. It's not the housing investment. It's not the developers that are largely at fault, although developers typically become the whipping boy, courtesy of the politicians who want to distract and deflect blame for their bad policies. The second part of the equation for getting affordable housing has to deal with the cost of building. And in California, we have so many mandates and regulations, so many taxes, so many obstacles that it's cost prohibitive to build. You've got regulations on every single element of construction, from supply chains that have been constricted by various regulations to labor costs being higher and more expensive than they should be. to government regulations on permitting and inspections that are more costly than in other states. And then, of course, there's the delay, the time it takes for California state government to approve projects. When a developer builds, they have to buy land first. And that means that they have to start paying interest payments on their loan, their mortgage for that land. And if entitlement processes drag out and you can't get an answer from government on approving building permits, on getting construction done on time, it's going to cost you more money. There's an interesting study from John Burns Real Estate Consulting, and it was done, I think, in 2018, actually. So it's several years ago. But take a look at even what we saw several years ago. They took the exact same architectural plans for a house and compared construction in Texas versus California. Would you be shocked to know that it cost $500,000 more in California to build the same exact house than in the state of Texas? $800,000 for that construction project in California versus $300,000 in Texas. Again, land prices were backed out of that equation, so California will obviously be more expensive because of land prices. All because of government mandates, fees, and waiting periods. Now, the third part of the economic formula for determining housing costs. The first part is location, location, location. We have issues and problems there. A lot of it, which was caused by politicians. The second part, which is regulations, mandates, the cost of government, the delay of government. Again, California, self-inflicted wounds there. The third part is, are people willing to invest? And that's where we have to understand that housing markets are competitive across state lines. This is so true. Why would a developer borrow money to build in California, knowing that it's going to cost more money, knowing that regulations are very, very difficult, the permitting process is very difficult? Why would they want to take on a project in California when they can get a quicker approval, less cost of construction to complete a project in another state? So capital becomes key. If you don't have investment capital for housing projects in your state, you're going to have less housing projects. And California has done its level best to make itself completely unattractive to housing investment. So when people say, we need more housing in California, I agree with them. We need more housing in California, although we are chasing a lot of people out the door. People are fleeing the state because of high crime, high cost of living, high taxes, failing schools, the list goes on and on. They're moving to other states. We're seeing net migration flows out of the state. So perhaps the housing market will correct itself at some point because politicians are doing such a bad job. But you would hope that we could fix California on all those issues and still provide affordable housing. There is a plan to do that. We're not going to talk about that plan in depth in this episode. But I want to tell you what the same politicians who created California's high cost of housing are now doing to make the situation much worse. Instead of streamlining the process, making California more affordable to invest and more attractive to invest in, California politicians have decided to impose bad projects on neighborhoods who don't want the projects put in their backyard in the first place. And there's a number of ways that they're doing this. And it's only going to lead to voter discontent. And people are going to get angry, and neighborhoods are going to see their quality of life plummet. State politicians, instead of fixing the cost issues of housing, have decided to let developers run rampant. They have enacted a number of bad laws in just the last 2 to 3 years that strip local control out of housing decisions. And I actually think that housing decisions ought to be a local issue. Most people think that that's pretty commonsensical, that some bureaucrat in Sacramento shouldn't be deciding for a neighborhood in San Diego County or in Santa Barbara or in Marin County. The bureaucrat in Sacramento shouldn't be deciding how many units should be put in a neighborhood, what projects should get approved. But that's what's happening with these laws. SB 9 and 10 eliminate single-family zoning in California. They want to allow developers to buy a single-family zoned property next to your home and have the right to build 4 units. 4 units. And then on transit corridors, they get to build up to 10 units on a plot that used to be zoned for a single family home. This is crazy. And that density cannot be supported in the state of California, and it certainly doesn't lead to better neighborhood quality. In addition to SB 9 and 10, the Sacramento politicians have proposed something called the Builder's Remedy. Now, the Builder's Remedy says that every city needs to hit arbitrary housing goals set by bureaucrats in Sacramento. The bureaucrats in Sacramento are just going to arbitrarily say your community needs to build 100,000 housing units over the next 5 years. And if you don't meet those goals, then the developers have something called the Builder's Remedy. And if a city council votes against their project, the builder gets to say, Builder's Remedy, I'm going to build anyway. Again, eviscerating local input and control. There's also the elimination now in the state constitution of language that's currently in the state constitution of the right of voters to vote down controversial welfare government housing projects. This is a proposal that will be on the March 2024 ballot. It's called SCA2, Senate Constitutional Amendment 2, and it would delete language in our state constitution that's been in there for more than 75 years that gives neighbors in a certain community where a welfare project would be put into the community, it gives those neighbors the right to vote down that project. SCA2 would eliminate that constitutional right, stripping voters of their opportunity to veto government housing projects. Now, by government housing projects, we're talking about welfare projects. We're talking about Section 8 housing. And these projects are controversial because they are associated with documented increases in crime and other bad behavior. Look, no one is saying that we shouldn't have affordable housing. The best way to get affordable housing, though, is not to trust the same government that screwed up that economics equation I talked about previously at the beginning of the video. No, you don't trust the people who screwed up the problem and caused the crisis. You go with proven examples from other states as to how they've been able to streamline housing production, housing investment in their areas. I can tell you right now, having government subsidized welfare projects is not the answer. It's not what people are looking for. They want people to be independent, to be able to actually pay for their home, to afford their home, and to support themselves. You don't need to have welfare housing projects be the number one solution to the problem at hand. If you want to provide more welfare, you're going to get more takers. You're going to get more welfare recipients as a result, and that system is simply not sustainable. There are few things that are easily proven to be a local issue, a local topic, where local government, whether it's your county board of supervisors or your city council, your local planning commission, should have control than housing. Housing is fundamentally a local issue. But all of these provisions that I just discussed will eliminate the opportunity for local input. The opinions of local communities and direct neighbors impacted by these projects will be silenced. Now, at Reform California, we're leading the fight to defeat SCA2 in the March 2024 election. We also are working to repeal SB 9 and 10 and repeal the Builder's Remedy. We're not against just bad policy, we're for good policy. And so in another episode, we'll be talking about the various proposals we have to streamline housing construction, to make California more attractive to housing investment, and to make sure that when projects are put into a community, that community's character and caliber of life is protected, and more importantly, that the infrastructure to support those projects is actually put in. So I urge you to join us. Go online to reformcalifornia.org. Sign up and be part of our coalition to fight back. You can also go to keephousinglocal.com. Go to keephousinglocal.com, and you'll continue to be provided with news and information on our campaign to ensure that local input is respected in housing decisions. We'll pick it up next time. Thanks for watching. Help us break through the censorship of the liberal media by liking this video, sharing it with your friends, and subscribe to my YouTube channel.